My wife and I had a great life together. We met within a church and started dating when she was 23 and I was 21. We were ready to get married in the eyes of God after 2 years of dating. We didn't move in or sleep together before that, opting to wait until marriage. I was sure she was an angel. She knew how to cook and even brought me cooked meals while we dated. She made it clear that she knew how to be a traditional wife that honored her husband. She was so good at being the perfect example of a Christian woman and wife that she wrote a book. It was really good, and a lot of her publicity started within her family, church, and hometown. She found a connection to a Christian publication company that supported her and what she was my rock. I loved how she excelled at the duties of a wife while managing to work on her second book. Before either of us knew it, she was going on her very first book tour. When she returned home, I unpacked her suitcase in the morning while she slept. A copy of her book fell out of a bundle of clothes. When I picked it up, I noticed she had signed it to someone named Ray with a sweet message and her phone number. I was so confused. Why would she do this? And why would she still have the book mixed in with her clothes? I woke her up and asked her about it. She is stumped and panicked, but plays it off as sleepy irritation. She asked me why I was going through her stuff. I told her I just wanted to help her unpack and found this. She calmly explained that it was for a woman named Ray who loved her book and had gotten lunch with her. She'd accidentally left it on the table when she left, so my wife planned to give it back to her. This didn't sound right. How did she leave the book without my wife being able to stop her? I pointed out that the spelling was likely wrong if she really was a woman. My wife asked me what I meant by that, saying it wasn't fair for me to assume she was lying. I asked her one more time if she was telling me the truth, and she swore she was being honest. She started to look genuinely concerned when she realized how upset I was. She got up and gave me a long hug, kissing my neck, swearing that I was the only man for her, and her life together had only just begun. I left the room feeling confused and slightly concerned. A few days later, I got home from work and noticed her through the living room window talking on the phone. She was laying on the couch, bouncing her crossed legs and spinning her hair. She was smiling ear to ear, giggling, biting her lip. She looked adorable, but I had no idea who she talked to like that. When I walked in, she must have hung up on the person because she was instantly off the phone, greeting me as if all was normal. Over dinner, I asked her who she was talking with on the phone. She looked a little surprised that I saw, but she quickly and shamelessly admitted it was the woman Ray. I wanted to check her phone to see what number it was and try to call it. That night, for the first time, my wife put her phone under her pillow to sleep, claiming it would be easier for her to hear her alarm. I thought about demanding her phone right then and there, but I honestly started to doubt myself. I wasn't sure she was up to anything out of the ordinary because she was normally a social butterfly. Just because she was talking to someone or multiple people, didn't mean she was cheating on me. I really wanted to sleep that night because I was exhausted, so I didn't start anything. The next morning, she told me she was going to be home late because she was going to meet with her publishing agent, Tracy. This made sense because she was working on a second book. I asked her how it was coming along, and she read some of it to me. I asked where they'd be meeting, and she told me where the publishing office was located. I told her I thought they closed at 4, and she said she was going late because that was the only time Tracy had available to see her. I asked why they couldn't meet another day and explained that I didn't like it when she wasn't home when I was off work. My wife snapped and said she'd been feeling trust lately, and she hated it. Before walking away, she told me I needed to knock it off. That was the first time my wife ever said anything like that to me. I drove to the publishing office after work and found the parking lot empty. 0 cars. I drove around aimlessly for a bit, calling my wife over and over. I felt extremely lost and betrayed. I went home and trying to stay wait for her, but I fell asleep around 1 a.m. I'm surprised that I didn't wake up whenever my wife got home. She just snuck into her room and went to bed. I found her the next morning, sound asleep. I checked my phone and noticed a delayed E-ZPass notification. My wife never took the turnpike anywhere unless it was to promote her writing career. And in those situations, she always told me. I was sure now she was having an affair, but I wanted to catch her red-handed so she couldn't lie to me anymore. The time I spent waiting for her to actually separate from her phone felt like an eternity. She didn't make it obvious that she was texting, but I could tell she was in communication with someone. When she finally separated from her phone, it was because she spilled a soda and went to grab a towel. I grabbed her phone and went into the bathroom. I installed a tracking app as quickly as I could, hiding it in a utilities folder on her phone. I didn't have time to look through her phone for anything. I just prayed this would work. I heard her wonder out loud where her phone went. I decided to call house phone as a distraction. When she went to answer it, I jumped out of the bathroom and put her phone in the couch cushions. She didn't have a clue. I got home from work a week later, and she told me she was going to a book signing the next day, hours away, so she'd be spending the night in Lancaster. That town made sense according to the E-ZPass charges. I pretended to be fine with it, but I knew I was going to follow her. She planned to depart while I was at work, so I had to call off. I couldn't focus on work anyway. Since I suspected my wife of infidelity, I called Tracy to ask about the book signing my wife was going to. She validated my concern by telling me that there wouldn't be another book signing for months. When I told her I suspected my wife of cheating on me, she said if that was the case, they wouldn't continue working with her to promote her book. I lost her for a bit after she got off the exit, but I was able to locate her on the tracking app. She was at an inn. I parked and watched her bring in her luggage. Not even 10 minutes later, another car pulled up. A man got out with flowers and knocked on her door. She answered it and squealed. She was so excited. She threw her arms around his neck and started kissing him passionately. His hands immediately started feeling her body and intimate parts. I jumped out of the car and sprinted over to them. When they heard me and turned to look, my wife made a very distressed noise that I never heard her make before. First, she asked me what I was doing there. I asked her what he was doing here. He asked me who I was, and I wanted to punch him. I yelled that I was her husband, and he started backing off. He threw his arms up and went for his car. My wife called after him and looked at me like I just broke her heart. She started stammering. She wanted to be mad at me, but she was the one that was caught. I accused her of cheating on me and throwing away our entire relationship and life together for some random man that read her book. I started walking away, realizing this was the worst moment of my life and it was only the beginning of the end. My wife chased after me, trying to convince me to talk to her. I told her I didn't have another word to say, and she should spend her energy trying to save her job. I left her there in the parking lot. She tried calling me and texting me several times, all while I canceled the bank cards she had that connected to my bank account. I knew she was counting on that for E-ZPass and her car payment. I stopped on the way home for new door locks. She showed up the next day and tried to use her key. When that didn't work, she stomped around the backyard, trying to slide open the glass door. Her name wasn't on the mortgage because her credit was non-existent. I was going to make sure she suffered consequences of wasting years of my life and cheating on me. I yelled through the glass door that she didn't deserve a house, home, or husband. She stood there and tried calling me 12 times while making eye contact. I just sipped my coffee. I felt proud. I knew I could call the police on her at any moment and have her removed from my property. And I think she knew that, which is why she was trying so hard to be sweet. She left voicemails while standing at the back door. I walked away when she said she loved me. She started yelling and crying. I came back a half hour later and she was still there. Through the back door, she begged me not to tell her parents or the church about what she'd done. She didn't want them to know she lost her career and husband by cheating. She begged me to give her a few trial days to see if she could make up for what she'd done. I laughed at her. There's nothing anyone can do to recover from cheating on their spouse. You just don't do it. While she sat there, I called her parents. She pounded on the glass in frustration, realizing she had nothing and no power. Her reputation was about to be shot within her church and family, and her book career was already brought to a screeching halt. As I spoke to her parents about what she'd done, she drove off angrily, probably to try to convince them it wasn't true or ask them for a place to stay. Either way, she was back in 2 hours, laying clothes from her suitcase on the porch like she was going to sleep there. I called the police and she was ordered to leave. She threw a fit, but narrowly avoided an arrest. To this day, she is still trying to find stability in life. She keeps hopping from sketchy to dodgy situations and relying on her very poor choices. Her Christian life, marriage, book and family are all things of the past. She's living a very different life now. Oh. There is never any excuse for a cheating spouse, but it seems so much worse that she went against her own writing and values for something so worthless. What does an affair do besides cause absolute destruction and pain? Even if the truth is slow to come out, it always does, especially for people who are making money off of fake personas. From what it sounds like, your ex will never fully recover from giving up the husband she chose under God. This is a great lesson to our readers: always uphold personal values and morals. Never betray other people, especially people you love, for perceived personal gain. It never works out in the end when karma catches up to you. Now for our second story. By the time this story concludes, my wife and I had been together for a total of 14 years. 9 of those were in marriage. When we finally got married, I was certain I was making the right decision. I waited many years before proposing so I could be sure she was an honorable woman who truly wanted a lifelong relationship. So many women today don't know what they want. They claim they want a marriage and a husband, but once they get used to that, they become bored and change their minds. My wife proved me wrong. She stayed loyal to me in the 5 years leading up to my proposal and several years into her marriage. She helped me through the loss of my father and all the times I struggled to press on. I was in college to become a surgeon, and it was no easy task. I relied on her to take care of me because much of the time, my brain was filled with medical terms and the things I had to remember. On the days she wasn't home or able to help me, I was so busy and absorbed in my work that I didn't eat and felt scrambled. She was my rock and peace, the kind of woman a man makes his wife. Once I started working as a surgeon, I saved money for 1 year and then bought us a mansion. I don't like bragging. I'm just telling the truth. My wife was set for life. She had a man that loved her more than anything and chose to share his wealth, prosperity, and life with her. I knew she loved me because she stayed with me through the times when I was too busy and exhausted to give her any special attention. I made up for it by taking her out weekly to the hottest spots in town. Eating, dancing, go-kart racing, whatever she wanted. We went to festivals, concerts, parties, beaches, you name it. Eventually, we bought a yacht and started hosting parties. I could tell my wife was loving this. She started some social media accounts that became glorified. I didn't really like that. But I didn't feel like I could tell her to stop. So many people have accounts like it, and she really enjoyed it. I didn't have any accounts myself, so I didn't see everything she posted. She posted a lot of photos and videos with me and her, and it was fun. I felt like our life together was the best life I could have ever asked for. My wife made a name for herself as a wealthy, sociable, beautiful woman that is worth getting to know. Whenever we hosted parties, more and more people started to attend. I wasn't very emotionally invested in any of these people, because I didn't have very much time off work. My energy was divided between my work and my wife. While I worked, my wife stayed home. She sent me a selfie every day to update me with what she was doing. Around the time I started to realize I didn't want us to host parties anymore, I got random texts at work. I received lots of random messages from people that knew me before I knew them. This one was bad news, though. It said that my wife was messing around with people on the yacht while I was at work. By the time I saw this message, hours had passed. I called my wife right away, and she answered calmly. She was confused when I told her about the text. She assured me she never takes the yacht out without me. I wanted to believe her because she had never given me a reason to doubt her. She was upset and irritated that some random person was trying to get her husband to question her integrity. The next morning I stopped at the yacht before work to take a picture of the gas gauge. I also noticed the trash can was empty. While I was in my office, my wife messaged me saying she spoke to the person who texted me and cleared up the confusion. She said that this was a woman who was jealous of our relationship and lifestyle. I asked her how she got the number, and it took her a while to reply. She finally admitted that she couldn't sleep the night prior, so she looked at my phone to get the number. I asked her what the woman's name was, and she didn't want to tell me. She just told me not to worry about it, and that encountering haters was inevitable. I let it go for the moment and just replying asking her that we not host a party that weekend. I didn't feel like it. Instead, I wanted to spend time alone with her. She didn't reply to my message at all. On the way home, I checked the gas gauge of the yacht. It was noticeably lower. Novaking this, I started to snoop around the boat. Under a cushion I found a button I didn't recognize. I laid on the bed and smelled Colin. I didn't know him. I continued looking for about 30 minutes before I checked the trash can. There, I found a bunch of used napkins and paper towels. I went home prepared to confront my wife with the evidence that she took the yacht out without me and must have had someone with her. Before I could get out a word, she demanded to know why I didn't want to host a party that weekend. In response, I asked her why she wanted to host another party this weekend. She just stared at me like I was stupid before she asks, "Why wouldn't we?" I was getting annoyed, so I told her I noticed the change in the gas gauge. She looked dumbfounded and asked me how I knew it was different. So I told her I checked it before I went to work. She blew up on me. She couldn't believe that I didn't trust her and went so far as to gather evidence against her. I told her it was my right to investigate my boat and wife for any signs of dishonesty. She scoffed and said she didn't know why I thought the gas was less because she wasn't on the boat that day. That's when I brought up the stuff in the trash can. She looked extremely embarrassed and wouldn't make eye contact with me. She threw her hand up and walked away like a snotty supermodel. When Saturday morning came, she started preparing food that she wanted to bring on the yacht for a party. I reminded her that I didn't want her to host a party this weekend. I wanted her to stay home with me so we could spend quality time together. She said if I didn't want to go, I could stay home, but I couldn't make her stay home because it was her boat just as much as it was mine. This really irritated me. I told her she wasn't being a fair or considerate wife, and I missed how she used to be. Her face softened, and she said she just wanted to have a great time on the yacht with me and her friends in the time I had off. She got close to me and started rubbing my chest. In the hopes that I could spy on my wife and the people she spent time with, I caved in. I wanted her to believe I was going to have fun, even though this was strictly an investigation. On the boat, she talked to a lot of people, but it was mostly men. The women on the boat were just looking for the man that was going to worship them the way they believed they deserved, and the men on the boat just wanted to find the next girl to play with. All the conversations seemed pointless, and I was growing impatient. This wasn't what I had in mind when I considered marriage. I thought it would just be me and my wife, but now she chose to surround herself with other people. She tried to say she was friends with women and men, but I was seeing something completely different. One man in particular seemed to be the center of her attention. I approached them and introduced myself. He seemed innocent enough, just a regular guy with a regular business. However, he smelled like the mystery Colin on the bed below deck. The next morning before work, I installed a well-hidden camera on the boat, pointing at the bed. It was connected to an app on my phone. I could speak through the camera too. Even though I was suspicious, I was very surprised when I checked the live feed after I got out of surgery. I could see my beautiful wife going at it with the same smelly man. I watched in horror for a few seconds before I voiced my opinion through the camera. They both jumped, struggled to cover themselves, and looked around. It took them 9 minutes to find the camera. My wife was so infuriated that she rummaged around to find a wrench and started beating the camera. That was the woman she became, an entitled, selfish, inconsiderate monster that did not want to face the consequences of her actions. I posted the video of her getting caught online, and it got hundreds of thousands of views, more than her glorified accounts. The video became associated with her accounts, and the scandal was talked about everywhere. She became known as the boat-partying wife of a doctor that lost it all. We had signed a print-up so she didn't get anything in the divorce. I don't think she ever planned on doing what she did. She became brainwashed and obsessed with the attention and validation of people, men that weren't her husband, and it poisoned her until she couldn't function as a loyal wife anymore. With her image ruined and nothing to her name, she had no idea what to do with herself. She tried so hard to turn her publicity into an opportunity for income, but she failed. She ended up taking a lousy job and room for rent just to survive without me. OP. She chose to let other men into her life by hosting these parties, and she probably justified it because you were there for some of the time. Then she started seeing the man she was attracted to while you were at work. I'm sure that her online presence gave her the courage and entitlement she needed to entertain ideas of other men. She went from being an honorable, humble woman, to one that was willing to cheat on the man she chose to marry and go through life with. This is a terrible consequence of zero self-control, zero accountability, and an ego blown way out of proportion. Maybe if she spent time meditating while you were at work, instead of posting on her phone and advertising her glamorous lifestyle, she might have remained loyal, thankful, and happy. Thank you for sharing your story and making your wife sign a prenup. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. If there is a story you would like to share with me about your own situation or someone else's, then please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.